Thanks everybody for joining us for today's webinar on the emergency response system updates and the LODD last team here in Ohio. We've got retired Chief Bill Houk and Fire Safety Inspector Jack Guyton with us.
Ready to go?
Ready.
Yeah.
Okay, let me bring up, I think we've got it. So I'm planning to do just a kind of a quick overview for the response system, talk about some updates, and then we'll kind of transition into Jack and his presentation. So I'd like to do this informal. If you've got any questions as we're going through there, please, feel free to ask. We can always answer questions afterwards as well. So if you're not familiar with me, I'm the current state coordinator for the Ohio Fire Chief State Emergency Response System. My name's Bill Houk. I retired after 34 years in a fire service out of Madison County. And I've been the state coordinator for, I think, a little over 4 years. I have been involved with the system since its inception. So I'm very familiar with it. So this is the link. If you want to get access into the system, you've got to have a SIMS account. If you don't, you can use this to log on, and there's a button in there that don't have an account, and you could set it up. It goes through just a real brief verification process. And I'd like to point out for now that it is important to use Internet Explorer as your web browser. Currently, that's the only web browser that they will guarantee functionality. That is going to be corrected with an update soon, but occasionally we have experienced some functionality issues because somebody wasn't on Internet Explorer. So I kind of like to give that that warning, if you will. So some of the kind of that comes to mind. Some of our Ohio's previous major events that required numerous resources. Such as the 1974 Xenia tornado. I believe they had over 500 personnel from 50 different departments. The 86 Miamisburg train derailment, they evacuated like 30,000, I think, residents, and utilized 100 EMS units from 6 different counties. McDonald, Ohio, 1986 had a natural gas issue. I believe it was an overpressurization, and they had 156 simultaneous structure fires. And then the real big one, I think, that really finally, I think, got people talking was the 1990 Shadyside flooding. It had 26 fatalities. It went on for 3 weeks and utilized over 800 responders from 3 different states. So like I said, it's, they're between the fire service and emergency management, started some discussions. Finally, the concept was, developed in 1998 from the fire chiefs. They formed a committee. They researched state plans from those states that currently or at the time had similar systems in place. And finally, it was adopted at the July 2000 conference and went live in August of 2002. Real simple objective is to be able to provide all Ohio jurisdictions with an easy way to summon additional resources once they've worked through their local mutual aid capabilities, whatever those are. And the nice thing about it is, allows us to, in a relatively short period of time, activate large quantities of resources. We've proven that it's not meant to replace any other plans, so it will complement any other plans that are in place or become developed. And the system is available for and we'll talk about different responses, but immediate, with like a shorter term duration or long term, and we have provided multiple day assistance in some of our activations. Quick snapshot I believe this was, I think I took this a couple months ago. So, when I do presentations to some of our state agencies or some of our leaders, I brag about this because there's well over $1 billion worth of resources there that are made available. Doesn't mean they're going to be available, like right at this point in time. It doesn't necessarily mean we've got 847 engines available because they do have their own incidents. Sometimes they're working, but I think it just shows you the level of commitment from the boots on the ground with our system. We've got strong partnership with some state agencies. First and foremost is through the Department of Commerce and the State Fire Marshal's Office. We work a lot with them and they're very supportive. We also work a lot with Department of Public Safety with EMA, Homeland Security, and Ohio Division of EMS. And especially recently this year with COVID, we work a lot with Department of Health also. So the way we're set up, we've got 4 central dispatch centers that rotate: Columbus, Hamilton County, Metropolitan Emergency Communications Center, and Toledo Fire and Rescue. They are primary for 2 months, and then they go back up for 2 months. The beauty of our system is it's very adaptable. So we can change that if currently Hamilton County is our central dispatch agency. So if we have an activation, and if Hamilton County has a major event going on, and it would be kind of cumbersome for them to handle our activation, we can move it to our backup agency or any one of the other agencies if we need to. And the numbers follow them. So, communications, it's from a responder standpoint, you really wouldn't necessarily know who the central dispatch agency is. Some recent activations that we've had, I kind of joke that it seems like water's our main response. There's either too much of it or not enough of it. We're either providing boats or water tenders. So, and here's a perfect example. We had, flash flooding in March, had a major fire at a pallet company in February, where we provided tenders. The partial building collapse in Cincinnati in last November, we helped with some notifications on an additional collapse search and rescue team. A major fire in Fulton County in September of last year. So we and this is one of those that kind of went extended. So 26 hours, we provided mainly water tenders, but we also were able to get them some engines and aerials. That was a pretty large response. We had flash flooding in Wayne County in July of last year, and here's another extended one. The tornadoes that came through around Memorial Day in 2019 in Montgomery County. So we provided water tenders for them for 72 hours. Their municipal water system was impacted, and so we were able to position tenders with them. And they actually did get used on some actual fires. So the way we do kind of our setup, our structure is each of the counties has a county coordinator. Some will have an assistant coordinator. That's who oversees resource data input and helps to coordinate how the county will respond. We also ask them to provide training for fire departments and dispatchers, so everyone's aware of the system and how to respond. If you don't know who your county coordinator is, it's fairly easy. We just have you contact a regional coordinator. So we follow the same 8 Homeland Security planning regions that the state does. Here is a current list of those coordinators. And this group is actually by far the backbone of our system. These coordinators help with, we'll talk a little bit, a little further in the discussion. They will actually help as a liaison with the incident commander and help facilitate a response if there's an activation. We also rely on them to kind of do some recon if we're aware of an area of a major event in an area. They can kind of help us relay some information back to the state as well. So each of the 88 counties, we asked them to designate one primary point of contact for a dispatch center. And the reason being, if we have an activation, there's a chance that an activation may request more than one department to send resources. So that helps our central dispatch agencies. Instead of contacting each department, they can contact the county once, and then the county can make their notifications by whatever means they have in place. So if you get the call while en route, we ask you to stay in contact with your home dispatcher department so they have an idea where you're at, you're en route, and have an idea when you get there. We definitely want to maintain accountability and radio contact if possible. That's one of the things we'll try to do is set up a staging area for the resources coming in from a response system. Sometimes we will get thrown into the command structure, but our primary objective is to help that incident commander with the additional resources that he or she needs. And we work to document our resources, and we can also help them with theirs if there's a need. We recommend, and this is one of the improvements I want to make on the system. We never want to activate more than 50% of a specific resource. So, simplistically, if a county has 20, type 1 fire engines in it, we never want to activate any more than 10. It does happen occasionally, and sometimes somebody will have a reserve or have an ability to send another engine. My first question is usually I push it back to them. Can you send that and still be able to respond to your day-to-day responses and let them make that decision. But we try to get the counties to kind of set up a system where they automatically don't send more than 50% of a specific resource. Ohio Revised Code allows us to respond as, you can respond individually if you've got the fire engine and the people, or you can respond, if you've got the fire truck and 2 people, and you can maybe borrow 2 people from a neighboring department, that's allowable. Before you go, the system will generate a code word, and that's meant to be used as kind of a sort of a scene security, if you will. If somebody arrives, if they've responded on their own and not part of the system, we don't automatically turn them away. We will contact the incident commander and see if he or she still wants that resource. And if they do, then we'll throw them into staging with our equipment. But it's just really meant to kind of reduce the amount of freelancing with a major incident. Obviously, get your crew together, know where the staging area is, some sort of a communications plan, communicating, obviously with your home county, your home department. Also, possibly with a staging area. I will tell you, our coordinators will most likely use the MARC system. That has proven to be very valuable for us. We've had coverage on MARCs in places where we've not had cell coverage. It's not a mandate for responders to utilize MARCs, but it is there and is available if you've got that capability. Obviously, your gear. If I, when I was still working, we kind of had a box with some water and protein bars, some of that stuff, just to get us by for a while if we were going to be there for an extended period of time. And then the ability to keep track of personnel on the equipment, and then obviously if you can, any of the jobs or tasks that you were asked to do. So obviously once you're there, just normal, this is kind of our normal, what the majority of people will do on kind of a major event or kind of our day-to-day stuff is check into staging, find out what the communications plan is, get your assignment, perform it, perform, within your local protocol, your certification levels. You can always, once you're done, ask for reassignment, and then we'll have you, when you're totally done and demobilizing, is to check out officially through our staging officer. Some things we really like to stress is to stay within your certification levels and experience levels. No freelancing. I kind of joke that we all know that as incident commanders, not every assignment's the hot and sexy assignment, but there's an incident action plan that the IC has set up, and so we'd like to adhere to that. So to make a request, one number, fire, EMS, rescue, hazmat, collapse search and rescue, rope teams. You saw some of the specialized stuff in there. That's the number that actually gets transferred when the central dispatch agency gets transferred. So that's the only number you need to remember. It will follow whoever central dispatch agency is. You can gain some information off the website too, if it's not part of the activation. Hopefully this information is transferred or passed on. We've got two types of responses. A scramble response, we ask, and nobody's got necessarily a stopwatch going, but we want you to get out the door a little bit quicker and expect to be deployed for less than 24 hours. And a standard response, give you more time to get out the door and could be deployed for up to 72 hours. But I always say, we have never had a resource go longer than 24 hours unless they wanted to. So even in, let's say, the Montgomery County incident, we did have a couple agencies that left their trucks there, but replaced their personnel on a daily basis. So that's perfectly fine. We can work around that. We just, we'll work to make sure that the resources are there that the incident commander has asked for, but we're pretty flexible in that. You definitely want to relay the staging area. And if there's an assigned marks talk group, I will tell you that we almost always will use Ecom 20. That has been reserved for us. Occasionally somebody else may jump on, in which case we'll switch. But the vast majority of the time it'll be Ecom 20. And then obviously that code word you want to relay to the companies. And hopefully we don't do it across the radio. So if you make the call, you're having a bad day and you need help, that call can come from the incident commander. It come from your, whoever your dispatch agency is, EMA director, whoever you're working with, whatever your structure is. We just need to know, obviously, the name of the, who's hosting that party, the affected jurisdiction and the fire department. Call back information, because most likely we may need either to relay some information back or confirm that resources are on the way. Who the incident commander is, the type of emergency. Obviously, it's important to know the type and number of apparatus needed. Location of a staging area, and we ask that these staging areas keep in mind that we're bringing resources in that are from outside of that region. So we want an easily identifiable staging area with easy ingress and egress. And then obviously what type of response is needed, a scramble or standard response. What you'll get is one of our regional coordinators will, depending on the ICS structure, will meet with the incident commander to act as a liaison between the response system and the incident commander. And I always like to stress, we're there to assist. We have been asked to become part of that ICS structure, but that's not what we're there for. We can do that. Any of the people coming in are current or retired fire chiefs, so they do have command experience. But we are there to assist and not take over. We do get some help from communications. Mark's personnel are notified whenever there's an activation, so they can work their magic and keep track of those push to talks. If the towers get busy and whatever it is they can do, reroute reroute stuff. We also have the ability to get command units from like the BSSA or any other units to, you know, like comm units, and which has helped during inclement weather, and has been able to provide us with additional like walkie-talkies too. So that's kind of helped. And then obviously remember that if you ask for large amounts of resources, you're going to get them. So, you know, kind of be prepared for that. So what you can do for the system, if you haven't yet, get to know your county coordinator, establish that relationship. You know, and even if an agency doesn't want to be available, doesn't think they're able to respond to the response system, we do still like to inventory those resources just so we have an idea of the resources throughout the state. And the big thing, I've got this highlighted, is one of the weakest points in our system is with county dispatch agencies. We've actually had it during activations where, you know, we've called a county dispatch agency for help, you know, and they were totally unfamiliar with who we are and what we do. And that's hard to overcome that during an activation. So, you know, there's been times we basically just had to scratch that county and go on to somewhere else. So we just like to make them aware of the system and kind of train them on what to expect. Last year, for those that had previous SIMS accounts, the state switched over their login to the identity manager system. So we just want to make sure people, if they want access to the response system, or if they need access to the response system, to make sure that they've switched over to the identity manager system. And then we also ask that you make sure your personnel are trained and aware of the response system. And there's a couple different ways here. Again, we don't dictate what goes on a local level. So however your county wants to respond, you know, we leave that up to you. Every county is a little bit different. So there's, you know, a couple ways of doing it. You know, like one of the things we did in Madison County, our Chiefs Association, instead of playing the monkey move up, we decided what we would do is so Madison County is kind of rectangular shape, kind of on its end. So we created 4 different run cards, in north, south, east, and west. And we left it up to our dispatchers to decide which way our resources would be leaving. So if they pulled the north card, and let's say multiple engines were asked for, they would dispatch the first engine, and geographically, and we had it spelled out how we wanted to do it. We would take the first engine, skip the second one, take the third, skip the fourth, and so forth. You can send the system will pick the absolute closest resources, but we allow the counties to change those resources to meet their needs, however their response system is in place. So that's kind of it for the response system. I kind of wanted to highlight, we've been pretty active since COVID started. One of the things we have done is during major events, when Ohio EMA has activated their Emergency Operations Center, we are activated as well. The system they have set up, the kind of the coordinating system, is with ESFs, or emergency support functions. And it's really designed to help coordinate the response and the activities and with information flow. So we mainly assist ESF4, which is firefighting, and ESF8, which is health and medical. That's where ODH and the Division of EMS set. We also help with ESF6 is mass care, housing and human services, ESF9, which is search and rescue, ESF10, which is hazardous materials, and sometimes we'll get into some other ones. And this has obviously been a weird year for us with COVID, but we started off physically in the state EOC. As numbers started to rise, they were really advocating working virtually, and that's really where we're at now. So I actually have 2 separate laptops. One of them is set up on the state's web EOC, so I can see if there's any activities. And here again, mainly watching things specific to ESF4. And this is also where those relationships really come into play. Because like I said, we work a lot with the state fire marshal's office and the division of EMS. So for me, and the reason we get involved is we've got the resources. The marshal's office and division of EMS, although they've kind of got access, probably more so than we do, to private ambulance. For all intents and purposes, we've got the resources that we can move throughout the state, and that's what the state asks us to do, and also asks us to track them. So in the event that we are starting to overwhelm a specific resource, if we need to reach outside of the state for additional help, we can let Ohio EMA know that. So while our system is not perfect, we have had we have had times where we've had either human error or technological errors. I always follow that up with, every time an incident commander has called us, we have been able to provide the resources that they have asked for. So, in almost 20 years, and we're getting up to where we're activating now 4, 5, 6 times a year, I think that says a lot that we've been able to help them out. But what I was really worried about with COVID, and I actually still am, and with our numbers going up, I know we're having greater impacts on our emergency responders, but I was worried about protecting our emergency response workforce. So some of the things that we did, we've participated in a PPE work group, and as subject matter experts trying this. I will say that the state has been very diligent. They still are, in trying to find PPE. And sometimes when they would find potential alternatives, they would shoot it to us for kind of recommendation, approval, or disapproval. We also participate in some transportation work group meetings. Here again, I was asking, so we're thinking that we're going to need to transport people maybe to alternate care sites or quarantine centers or wherever the case may be. So I was really kind of pushing that we didn't rely too much on our emergency responders. So we had them for our day-to-day emergencies or our true COVID emergencies. We also we had a quarantine work group. And I think there were some potential, not to force people to go to quarantine, but if people needed to quarantine and weren't able to do it home for whatever reason, they were working to set up sites that they could do that. Still participating in operation floor briefs, and ODH has touch point calls where they keep in contact with their partners. And one of the things that I think that has worked out really good, I keep in mind that I talked about worried about protecting our emergency responders, is we worked with a GIS person from Ohio EMA and developed a personnel needs survey. And if anybody's a member of the I-Chiefs, it is extremely similar to the one the I-Chiefs put out. We added some questions to gain a little bit more information. So you're getting ready to see this get pushed out again. We've had a lot of help from Division of EMS and State Fire Marshal's office. So when they push it out, we get pretty good responses, and then it kind of decreases in those responses. So with our numbers up, we're trying. We have a push going on right now too. We sent a message out through the response system a couple days ago, and Division of EMS is getting ready to send this out, and so will the Fire Marshal's office. So that link will take you to the simple survey, and then so here's what I look at is it goes. It brings up so I can kind of track some of these numbers. There was some incorrect information put in, so don't worry about that. But so it'll bring up a map, and I can adjust it by date and take a look, and it'll tell me who's having issues at the time, and then I'll contact them and see if they're able to internally, if they're still able to respond, if they're relying on mutual aid. What I'm really trying to identify is any patterns in a region in case we think we need to move additional resources. We want to try to figure that out as soon as we can. We'll make it easier on our end. So some updates in the last couple of years. And if anybody's familiar with OH Track, it's a patient tracking software. It was actually designed and mandated to be used by the hospitals, but it's user intuitive, and there are a lot of agencies, especially in the northern part of the state, northeast, northwest, that can initiate this from the field. So it's handy for mass casualty. You can start inputting patient information, and then the hospital can update that, and really helps with reunification, from their family members trying to figure out where, Jane Doe is, and it's worked out pretty good. So some of the regions in the state are very aggressive in using this and have a method to initiate an OH track event. For those that don't, you can call that same 888 number, and we can initiate the event for that county or that region. We, as part of a kind of communications test, we test notification through the response system once a month, and we've started to rotate those times to try to catch all 3 work shifts. We think that'll help with awareness on the county level. We're also getting ready to implement some very simplistic quarterly regional exercises. So probably making some calls out to the counties, just say, hey, at this point in time, we have we've got an exercise going on. If we needed 4 fire engines, could we get them from your county? And that'll be about the extent of that. We're also have a current project going on where we're most likely going to be adding dispatchers as a resource. We've been talking about it for a while. I was worried at the beginning of COVID that there might be a need as well, and we're moving forward with that. And then what's really neat is, and we'll kind of transition into Jack's presentation, but we're working with our IT personnel for a notification method for a line of duty death team for the emergency response system. So, in the unfortunate event that your agency, suffers a tragic line of duty death, you'll be able to call that same 1-888 number, and it will notify the team, and they can help. They do some amazing work, so they can come out and guide somebody through the process. Any questions? Awesome. So if you're welcome to write this down. I'm available unless I'm on the phone. I will always answer the phone, day or night. It stays with me. You can email me or call. I can help facilitate contacting, regional coordinator if there's a need. If somebody is interested in a presentation for their department or a county group or something like that, we can coordinate that. And of course, now we can either do it, depending on what's going on locally, we can try to do it in person, or we can do it through Zoom also. So always willing to talk about the response system and increase awareness for it. And that is all that I have. Jack, I think you can turn it on. You should be able to share your screen.
All right. See if I can get this going.
Let me try this too.
Let's see. How's that?
I'm not seeing it.
Are you seeing it now?
Yep.
Okay, so my name is Jack Guyton. I'm the Fire and Safety Inspector for Scioto Township Fire Department in Delaware County. There's several Scioto Townships throughout Ohio, but this one's in Delaware County. And just a little bit about myself. I've been in the fire service for about 20 years. Prior to that, what got me into what I'm going to talk about today is I've been a bagpiper for years, and it's been in my family tradition. And so when I got into the fire service, I got asked to play funerals. And so I became a part of fire department funerals with that. And then that brought me into the LODD team. And then being with that team for a while, I became the chairperson of the LODD team. So my little presentation here, I'm going to talk a little bit about the team and what we do and who we are. And then towards the end, I'm going to bring in Brandon Jackman, who when I first started as the chair, I went down and helped out their fire department. He's going to talk a little bit about what we did for them. So we'll get started with this. So, okay, so this is the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association Line of Duty Death Team. And we are also, from that, we are also the National Firefighters Foundation Local Assistance State Team, the last team. So our primary duty is with the fire chiefs, and we're going to come out and help assist people with funerals when they have it. And hopefully nobody ever has to call us. But if you do, we're ready to go. So our mission statement, the mission of the Ohio Fire Chiefs Association, LODD team, and National Fallen Firefighters Foundation Local Assistance State Team program is to provide assistance, resources, and comfort to the family and departments, as well as assist with funeral details and help with filing the DOJ PSOB state and local forms. Now, when I say that, Department of Justice, and they're the ones that have that do the benefits for the public safety officers' benefits. And that's not just, we don't only just help out with fire departments, we help out with EMS, and we also help out with law enforcement. But our primary goal right now for the Ohio Fire Chiefs is to help out the fire departments. And then all other aspects of the team functionally are secondary, but are made available because of the possible needs of families and the fire service throughout the country during a critical time. And what we mean by that is a lot of people know that we come out and we help with the funeral and everything, and we have equipment that we provide. But after it's all said and done, we come back in and we can go in and help the family. And if there's kids involved, then we can see that they get through education like college. There's grants out there for them, so we can assist with that. So we're covering a wide spectrum there. So the team configuration, we had the state coordinator, or cast as they would put it on the NFF. I'm the coordinator, and I oversee the team, which consists of about 20 members statewide. So I have people down in Southern Ohio, I have people down in Cincinnati, Cleveland, all over the place that we can call on. So once the team is activated, the cast or chair will get the preliminary information from the incident and deploy the correct team member in that area to coordinate the department's needs, and he'll get back with me. And then we can figure out what we're going to do. So when we talk about what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do is get a lot of information and some stuff to help out the departments with doing this. And Brandon's going to kind of talk about that a little bit later. But the first thing we're going to do is offer our assistance, guidance, and our resources from the first day on till the very end. We're going to help the fire department out at the beginning with the funeral. And then eventually we're going to come back in. We're going to work with the fire department and the family to get the PSOB done for the family. We're going to assist with the level of funeral planning and resources of any level if requested by the department. So we only help out the department if they ask for us. All right. We're not going to come in and take over, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. We will also assist the family with survivor benefits. We kind of talked about that earlier. If warranted, we'll assist the family and the departments going to the state and National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Services. And that's always held the first weekend of October. And we will help the fire department decide if they want to send somebody out there as an escort, or if they don't want to do that, then there's plenty of escorts that go out. Ohio usually offers up about 15 escorts to go to that service. The other thing that we'll do is we're big on this. We will respect the wishes of the family and the department. So sometimes we get calls where the family doesn't want us involved at all. They just want to have a private private funeral. Whereas you might go to the other spectrum where they want everything. All right. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later on. What we won't do is show up unannounced and take over the funeral planning and benefits. This is always at the discretion of the department and the family. So we come in and say, would you like us to help? And if you say yes, then we jump in and we just kind of guide the fire department and the family through all this. So what I was going to talk about earlier, one of the things that we run into on occasion is there's 7 levels of funerals or line of duty deaths. Level 1 is going to get full honors. That's everything there's out there. Okay, and I won't go into all those details. I just kind of break this down a little bit. Level 2 is an on-duty incident relating to a series of events causing the firefighter to gradually deteriorate from a healthy state to a biological death. So if he was severely hurt on an incident and that causes him to die later on, that's still going to be considered a line of duty death. And then it just kind of goes down to, you know, being off duty, and maybe he's an active person, maybe he's in a motorcycle accident. We do that. We also work with retired firefighters, where if they are retired and they pass away, we can come in and help with that too. Of course, now he's getting less honors. And then it goes on down, just breaking it down even more. So there are different levels. And what we run into is sometimes you might have somebody that's down here at a level 5 and they want to give them full honors. Well, if that's really what you want, okay, well, you know, we'll do that. But we try to keep people from doing that, because if a level 5 person, we're honoring a level 5 person, what's that say about the level 1 person who fell through the roof or whatever, and it was more severe? So we try to follow this as close as we can. And a lot of times we're good with that, but every once in a while we get one where people are like, no, we want to do full honors for this. It's like, okay, all right, but we try to keep them from doing that. So what we can offer, first thing that we try to do is make sure that we're getting critical incident debriefing teams out there. We'll give the department guidance, and we'll help them do the funeral planning and guidance with that. We have a funeral equipment trailer. I'll show you pictures of that a little bit later. We now are working on, we have a couple of chaplains statewide that are joining us. So we can, we're starting to be able to actually offer up chaplain services. And we actually did have a request for a chaplain not too long ago. So that kind of helped out. We can help out with honor guards as needed. Sometimes people don't have honor guards, but they have people there that want to do the casket watch. So we can actually come in and train people real quick to do that. It's not all that hard. So we can train the department's people to do that if need be, or if they want to do that. Or if they don't want to do it, we can bring in another honor guard to do that for them. So we've got plenty of honor guards that can deploy. And I can say that we're really heavy on the west side of the state with that. We can also get bagpipers and or pipe band if needed be. And of course, everybody on the last team pretty much is a benefits specialist. So they're going to help you with the PSOB forms. So that's our equipment trailer there. When I first got a hold of it, it was a disaster. It didn't look anything like that. And we had somebody volunteer to paint that for us. They did that for us. And then another fire department got that sticker put on there. So that's what the trailer looks like now. It's come a long way. Inside the trailer is These steps, and I'll show you another picture here. These steps are set up so that you can load the casket up into the back of an engine. And then we have those rollers next to the steps there. You see that sits in the fire hose. And Brandon was actually built those. And then next to that, that's a practice casket there. And that can be used to practice using those steps to getting the casket up into the fire truck. And then everything kind of hangs off the wall. We also have enough bunting in there to do 3 engines. So there's plenty of bunting in there. And it's got an extra hitch in there in case somebody shows up to pick it up and they don't have a hitch. So that's kind of much everything in a nutshell what this trailer has. We can either deliver it to you, or if you want, most of the time people will come and pick it up, and it's kept over there at the Fire Academy. So this is what the setup looks like. So when the steps are set up, it's set up to the rear there, and you can walk up the steps and then safely load the casket onto the engine. When I talked about the pipe band, this is the Ohio Firefighters Pipes and Drums. This is just kind of this was a small funeral, but we have pipers down in Cincinnati, Cleveland, Toledo, and actually in this picture, most of those people are represented. Most of the corners of the state are represented here. Okay, so at this point, so that you kind of understand where the team's at, what we have, and what we can do, I'd like to bring in Brandon. And then Brandon's going to talk a little bit about how we helped out his fire department, because his case has gone full circle. And what I mean by that is we came down, we helped them out, met with the family, and then and now the family has the fallen firefighter has been honored at the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial. Of course, this year it was virtual, and so it was all on YouTube or some, I forget where they actually had it, but it was on there. And next year when they have it, they're going to do both years. So it's going to be a big year out there, and they're going to need a lot of escorts. So what I want to do now is I'm going to let Brandon talk a little bit, and he'll introduce himself, and then we're going to come back, and I'd like to show a video of how all this ends up at the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Service. Brandon?
Jack, thank you, sir. Really appreciate being invited in today. You know, I was at one of those points in my career. You know, I never wanted to have a line of duty death, and that fateful call came that day, and we lost Joe Patterson. It was a scuba tank exploded in the station, and ultimately cost Joey's life. And Chief Manning, who's the chief of our department, I guess I should back up. I'm sorry, Jack, I didn't even introduce myself. Like Jack said, my name's Brandon Jackman. I'm a lieutenant with Paint Creek Joint EMS and Fire District. We're in Southern Ohio. 3 stations. We're a mixed department, full-time, part-time, and volunteer. We cover about 330 square miles out of 3 stations, so pretty busy. Chief Manning was on vacation in Atlanta, maybe even down the Gulf Shores when this happened. And I got a phone call from Chief Manning, said, just start the process and do what you got to do. And I had no clue. I mean, it was one of those things I never want. This is a firefighter's funeral was something I never wanted to have to plan. But you mean Jack's predecessor, Ron Teriakis, who was the cast for the team at that time. I got a phone call from Ron that day. He said, hey, I got a guy. His name's Jack Guyton. He's going to be in touch. And that's pretty much how Jack and I become friends. I mean, we've been pretty thick and thin through that because I had no clue. And what it turned out to, Jack come down and met with us numerous times. He had all kinds of check sheets and forms and everything else. You mean it almost become a check the box thing, because I never dreamt that the logistics of it. You mean everything from resource management, fire apparatus, because all the area fire departments wanted to be in the procession. We had over 300 pieces of fire equipment that had to be managed in the parking lot, and procession routes, and controlling traffic, because the funeral procession wrapped all the way around the city of Chillicothe by the time it was said and done. As it was entering the city, the other end of it was leaving the city, all the way around it, headed back to the graveyard. Busing to get everybody from the funeral site to the graveyard, because we done the Sea of Blue, and we marched Joe in, and just the logistics of it. And I remember very poignantly that right after everything started and we're trying to get everything scheduled, here I am. I'm just, I don't even know that I was a lieutenant at the time when this happened. But next thing I know, I'm sitting in an office with Chief Manning and Chief Ober, he's now retired from Anderson Township Fire Department, and then Chief Kelly from Miami Township down in Claremont County, sitting down with all of us. What do you need? And it got to the point where Chief Ober and Chief Kelly come to the funeral, and Chief Ober first told me, he said, Brandon, he said, if you need a bottle of water, don't hesitate to ask. It's amazing the amount of resources that are available, and no ask was too big or too small. They were there every step of the way, and it got to the point why we were having daily planning meetings. Everybody that had a chit in the game, we met at 8 a.m. every morning, and talked through what resources we still needed to put in place, what resources we had secured, what resources were available. The last team, we'd have never been able to make that happen without them, because they were every step of the way. If we had a question on, okay, what level was this? We deemed it a level 1. So we had to find all those resources of lining up ladder trucks and lining up flags and caissons and getting the steps so that we could put Joe in the hose bed of an engine. And the last team done all of that for us. I said no ask was too big, too small. And it got to the point to where all said and done, we laid Joe to rest, and I went to Jack, and I'm like, buddy, I've got to be on this team. I've got to pay this forward, I guess, for lack of a better term. So Joe was hurt and died 2.5 years ago. I've been on the team ever since. I've helped at least 2 or 3 other departments manage their line of duties and their losses, and it's amazing what the last team does. All the way from that first call clear up to, it took 2 years for the public safety officer's benefit to finally be awarded to his widow. Back and forth, and they wanted birth certificates, and they wanted better copies of death certificates. And Captain Benjamin, Joe was his last PSOB case. Benji retired from the team after that case, and Benji stuck with it all the way through for 2 years. He worked on Joe's case to get everything done. And like I said, Joe was finally, his PSOB was awarded, which when that happened, that also meant his name gets struck to the wall in Emmitsburg. And like Jack said, that this year was virtual, but next year Joe will be honored in person. So hopefully we'll send some members of the department out there to be part of that, and escort Jennifer, his widow, and we'll just go from there. But speaking for myself, there is no ask that's too big or too small for the Fire Chiefs Association last team. If we can't help you, we know where we can find it. If it's something we don't physically possess, we will find it for you, or we have a resource. I don't know how many times I was doing a funeral in extreme southeastern Ohio, just out in the middle of nowhere. And we needed I called Jack. I said, Jack, I need a piper. He drove 3 hours to pipe that funeral. It was a paramedic that got killed in a car wreck while on duty in her squad. So we have resources, and no ask is too big or too small. I really appreciate everything that the last team done for Paint Creek, as does Chief Manning. And like I said, it was the least thing I could do to become part of this team and be able to move forward and be able to help other departments in their time of need. So I'd be happy to answer any questions there. That's kind of what I had, Jack. I know you told me to keep it brief. Hopefully that was brief enough. And that's how the last team helped Paint Creek.
Well, thanks, Brandon. Anybody have any questions for Brandon? Okay. So I'm going to move on here. Does anybody, I'm going to ask and see if there's any questions for myself, but I would like to show this video because it kind of shows how things end up and what our team does. We go to the Memorial Weekend in the first weekend in October, and I'd like to just kind of show what this looks like. Now, this video I'm partial to because the family that I escorted is one of the families that you'll see interviewed here. This guy's sons are going to be interviewed in this. And actually, I've stayed in touch with this family. They live in West Virginia. So without further ado, let's see if I can get this going.
Today we pay tribute to 92 firefighters who died in the line of duty in 2018 and 27 firefighters who died in previous years.
His name was Michael James Edwards. He's my father. I feel pretty good being able to support him and to carry on his legacy.
I know he's in a better place, and I know he's whole with me.
There's no more honorable vocation in life than to serve to protect your neighbor, to step forward into harm's way so that others may live. But that selfless service often comes at a great price. And we mourn those fallen firefighters, our heroes, who have given all to protect their fellow Americans.
When there's no way out, there's still way through.
That's the first time I cried since she died. I haven't been able to do it. It's final. I was there the day she died. On December 5th of 2018, she turned 21. On December 25th, 2018, she died in a single vehicle car accident responding to a structure fire. She's a fantastic individual, beautiful girl.
When I think back on these times and the dreams we left behind, I'll be glad because I was blessed to get to have you in my life.
This is a very special Light the Night for fallen firefighters. Buildings throughout the country are lighting the exterior of their structures in honor of our fallen.
May God bless those who have gone before and the service and commitment that they gave and that we here pledge to continue.
All right, so that's where we end up. Once we get started, we see it all the way through to that. And if you've never been to that, it's well worth the visit. I can't tell you how powerful that is when you go out there, and it's always honor. Now, like I said, we send about 15 escorts out every year. The LODD team sends about 15 escorts out. So just to kind of let you know what we're up to. So with that, is there any questions? Okay. Well, that's all I have for today.
Anybody else have anything? No, I think we're good to go, guys. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone. Stay healthy and stay safe.
Have a good weekend.
All right.
Thank you.
Mm.